we could finally start. I was hoping to start an hour ago, but then I spilled a smoothie on my ceiling. Yeah, so I just had to spend a lot of time cleaning it up. And then I thought that was a good time to do my meditation, just to wind me down before starting. And then now we're here. Hopefully we can salvage the situation. Hopefully we could get something done. We'll see. I don't know what I want to do. I think I want to check back in the meditation stuff. I think that was our mindfulness, yeah.
Shift, push.
Whoa, okay, but first I want to watch this, because we didn't watch it yesterday.
Amphetamines can drive you through brutal work shifts, push you through boring study sessions, or keep you dancing till dawn. They fuel ambitions and sharpen minds. We've given them to soldiers to fight harder and to children to help them focus. Today, millions of brains are running faster than evolution had ever planned. In the last 15 years, amphetamines have become one of the fastest growing drug markets in the world, second only to cannabis. Like any drug, amphetamines can be used to escape reality. But unlike any other, they promise to help us master our modern world. What makes them so appealing? And what happens to your body once you take them? Supercharging your brain. Almost everything humans do relies on focus and motivation, whether you're working, playing, studying, creating.
So the real question here is, what is going on? Are we doing something for dopamine? Which I think is the case with like Vyvanse or an Adderall, I think. Are we, is it just something to do with dopamine, or are we also messing with norepinephrine and acetylcholine? Are we just amping these up? Are we just amping up alertness? Yeah. I doubt it has something to do with acetylcholine, but I could be wrong.
Creating, working out, partying, or fighting,
directly.
You need to push through exhaustion, silence distractions, and stay in sync. Amphetamines are stimulants and do just this extremely well. They come in three main types: plain amphetamine, methamphetamine, and MDMA. Meth is an extremely potent and addictive version, and MDMA or ecstasy has some quite unique effects, but today we'll focus on plain amphetamine, sold on the street as speed or as prescription drugs like Adderall or Vyvanse. The main effect of amphetamines is to trick your brain to massively increase the levels of dopamine and noradrenaline.
All right, here we go. I'm guessing we've got a synapse here. This is a synapse, perhaps. And we've got dopamine going across. We got noradrenaline, norepinephrine. And we're increasing dopamine. And okay, but we're doing it. It's not just increasing it. You know, I think it's something to do with I don't know, with dopamine, like how quickly the receptors can get back into gear, such that it can get more of the dopamine that's coming across.
Dopamine is the chemical of motivation and excitement, like the rush when you're about to beat that impossible boss in a Souls game. Noradrenaline makes your mind awake, focused, alert, and sharp, able to precisely and quickly move your fingers to perform the combo that destroys the boss. Dopamine says, yes, this matters, and noradrenaline gives you the tools to make it happen.
Nice.
On amphetamines, you aren't simply excited, but plugged into a hidden power source. You can quickly absorb and react to everything around you. Your attention is locked in the moment. In the best case, you enter a state of flow easily.
The downside, of course,
your mood
is
is lifted and
the
boring
stress
tasks
response
seem more engaging. Distractions
that
become
amped.
less distracting in the face of your goals. Your heart pounds faster, your breath quickens, and sweat beads on your skin. Hunger fades, and fatigue dissolves. Other stimulants like cocaine peak or fade quickly, maybe crashing you and leaving you more tired than before, but amphetamines lift you up and hold you there for 4 to 14 hours. Back in the day, amphetamines used to be prescribed for all kinds of problems: to lose weight, fix your depression, or against nasal congestion. Nowadays, they're mainly prescribed for ADHD, a mental disorder that makes it hard to concentrate on things you find boring and to control your impulses. ADHD brains are basically looking for a reward that never comes. Amphetamines solve this by providing this reward, turning a super easily distracted scatterbrain into a focused one. In the last decades, ADHD diagnoses in kids and adults in the US have skyrocketed, leading to an unprecedented amount of prescription amphetamines. But amphetamines aren't just drugs, they're tools. Performance-enhancing tools perfectly aligned with our most mainstream ambitions. And if they manage to keep you awake and focused better than coffee or energy drinks, why not get your daily performance boost with a dose of amphetamines? They're made in labs, prescribed by doctors, and safely taken by millions after all. So their legal and illegal use has surged in many workplaces, particularly in very stressful or highly competitive industries that require long hours and intense focus. From tech to finance bros, from cooks or truck drivers to surgeons or nurses. In the US alone, more than 4 million people illegally use prescription stimulants. Especially college students have started to rely on them more and more, not to party, but to push for better grades. Concentrating and studying are hard enough on their own, but even more so in times where short-form videos and endless scrolling have nuked our attention spans. Some believe they have undiagnosed ADHD, that their struggle to concentrate is a flaw that needs chemical fixing, or they simply want an easy edge to achieve more. Imagine you're cramming for finals. Someone offers you a pill and the fog in your brain lifts. 8 hours vanish in a hyper-focused blur. Should you take another one tomorrow? This is starting to sound like a commercial.
I feel like this is an introduction that is like lasting half of this thing. I mean, perhaps this video isn't supposed to be about explaining what they're actually doing to have that effect on you. And we also have to talk about they still have to talk about the negative or the downside. So I'm curious when they're actually going to get to the mechanism.
But the frank reality is that amphetamines promise an easy fix to things that many of us struggle with. But of course, nothing good in life comes for free. Speed crash. The dark side of amphetamines comes in 2 flavors: unpleasant side effects and serious health risks.
There's a chance that this video just doesn't cover the mechanism at all.
That amphetamines work, just not for the right thing. Instead of finally writing the paper that's due tomorrow, you hyper-focus on grinding your game, and then the day's over. Congrats on the new item, but you'll still fail your class. More serious is that noradrenaline puts your body into fight or flight mode, which can make you feel nervous.
What is good, Darmadam? Just straight chilling. Watching this amphetamine video, just to see if it aligns with what we've got so far.
Tense and on edge. Your heart beats faster and your breaths are shorter, which is exactly how your body feels when you experience anxiety or panic. Suddenly, you feel extremely worried or can't stop ruminating.
Midday here, nearly nap time. Nice. Been reading, meditating a bit. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
If you're already pretty stressed or...
Oh, I dropped a song a few days ago. Ooh, where do we find it? Where do we find it? How'd it go, also? And is this a single to the project you had? Nice. All right. I don't know if I don't know if we should listen on stream, but I will certainly listen. Just rogue single, nice. Don't want to do an album of it. Just drop the one. Awesome. Very cool. I'm stoked.
Or anxious, this can worsen your anxiety or even lead to a full-blown panic attack. On the other hand, your motivation can overshoot. Your patience shrinks to almost zero, and you can feel wired and very annoyed at people because they speak and think too slowly, making you jittery and pretty unpleasant to others.
Jesus.
Amphetamines also make you numb towards the needs of your body, so it's easy to forget that
this whole video is like a trip in itself.
Realize that you're totally
keeping
dehydrated, tired and shaky after neglecting your body's needs for hours and hours. And while amphetamines lengthen the time you can stay awake and be productive, if you took them too late in the day or too much, it may just be impossible to get to sleep as your mind can't stop racing.
True.
Making you exhausted the next day, tempting you to solve the problem with another dose. If you take too much, all the enhancing effects can reverse, leaving you nervous, restless, obsessively overthinking, or outright unable to focus on anything. Some prescription amphetamines like Vyvanse stay active in your system for up to 14 hours, so if you have a bad trip, you may have to wait it out. And the come down can also be pretty harsh. After hours to wait it out.
If you experience an adverse reaction to Vyvanse, do not wait it out. Contact your medical provider. Nice.
And the come down can also be pretty harsh. After
isn't this company compromised? You're saying the Katzgazat company? Are they compromised? I don't know what we would mean by compromised here. There was a concern at one point that their facts were wrong, but then I felt like they'd had a good response to that. They put out a video explaining it. Katzgazat controversies center on past issues with oversimplification and bias, particularly in early videos like addiction and the European refugee crisis, which presented nuanced topics with a singular, sometimes dismissive perspective, leading them to remove the videos and improve fact-checking. More recently, criticisms point to a perceived neoliberal or pro-market bias in their climate change and tech videos, suggesting they favored technological fixes and corporate solutions like net zero. All of these things, in my mind, don't seem like that crazy. Like, in some sense, the Katzgazat is a journalist. Like, the channel is a journalist channel. So if they have biases, like, that's fine. You know, I don't know if we can find a. I mean, that being said, they do present these things in a seemingly broad way. That said. Yeah, it's fair to point out biases. I heard they had bad funding or something. Whoa. I also, they made a game that I'm curious about. I kind of want to check it out. Compromised Onion Helmet is hilarious, to be honest. It sounds like they got infiltrated. I do like using these strong words for, what did I use? Have I used compromise before? I think when I talk about someone that is friends with someone else, like a content creator that's friends with like a Elon Musk is technically compromised in that sense. Do I usually use the word compromised, or do I say something else? I think I say compromised. Like, that's how I think about it. It's like they probably have unconscious biases now, and we have to be careful. But yeah, I've never gotten a strong like feeling that this channel like gives prescriptions that are really like strong. I could be wrong about that, but like I've never actually come away with one of these videos thinking like, oh man, we got to change something. Maybe that's just me, but I think Onion is compromised. Dun dun dun.
After hours of being bathed in dopamine and noradrenaline, their levels drop suddenly. You may feel extreme fatigue. Your mood can crash, leaving you feeling low energy and depressed. You may experience a fresh boost of anxiety as your brain tries to rebalance itself. And of course, there's addiction. First of all, constant artificial dopamine highs can totally disrupt your emotional baseline. Swinging from euphoric and super focused and driven to stressed and tired is pretty unpleasant. If you take amphetamines regularly, you build a tolerance, needing higher doses to achieve the same effects, which raises the risk for all the negative effects. Maybe at the beginning amphetamines were the solution to finally do your homework, but after a while you just feel completely unable to study or work at all without the boost they give you. It can be hard to get back to your normal baseline afterwards. Okay, not ideal, but can amphetamines destroy your life? Well, maybe. Definitely your brain and heart. The flood of chemicals that boosts your brain can overwhelm it, mixing noise and signal and turning clarity into chaos, leading to psychosis. You can no longer tell for sure what's real and what's not. Typical symptoms are bizarre thoughts, hallucinations, and paranoia. In most cases, they fade once the drug wears off, but sometimes they stay for months, and for a minority of people, they can evolve into full-fledged schizophrenia, changing your life forever. Amphetamines speed up your heart, and over time, even mild increases in blood pressure can damage vessel walls, causing them to thicken, narrow, and lose elasticity, which forces your heart to work harder. If you use them long term, this can lead to serious complications like cardiac arrest or an irregular heartbeat. And in high enough doses, especially mixed with other stimulants like cocaine, amphetamines can trigger heart attacks, tear open major arteries, or burst blood vessels in your brain, leading to strokes, even in young people. How likely is this to happen? Today, it seems that low-dose prescription use over the short term for ADHD is relatively low risk, while chronic and especially heavy use in healthy people is probably harmful. If you want our opinion after our research, amphetamines are a huge grey zone. A part of society runs on speed because it wants to work more, be more focused, faster and longer. For some people, they're an effective way to treat a real underlying condition. For some, they're a great health risk. Without medical guidance and proper care, amphetamines can turn you into a terribly on-edge, anxious and unpleasant version of yourself. They are an easy but also a short-term fix, and probably not a sustainable long-term solution if you do not have an underlying condition. You can brute force your mind and body to do what you want them to right now, but amphetamines are not helping you to acquire better habits or to grow and become a better version of yourself. But we're not the health police. You do you. But hopefully, you do so as informed and responsibly as possible. Luckily, there are other ways to supercharge your mind and become a sharper version of yourself.
We've got an
Our
ad.
favorite way to do this by far.
All right. Okay. Fortunately, my experience with Vyvanse has been pretty positive, and I do think it has significantly changed my life. All right, we're all compromised, to be honest. True. I found a video how Kotzgazat cooks propaganda for billionaires. Whoa. What kind of propaganda are they pushing? Like, in my mind, this is like the most mundane propaganda. The big pharma is a hero. Oh, that big pharma is a hero. I guess in some sense, what we just watched would contradict that, but yeah, I'd have to see. I'd have to see the videos. That being said, that channel talks about so many different things, so it's not like they're not worth the time. Yeah, it's not like they're so laser focused on pushing an agenda. It doesn't seem it that way. Like they talk about all kinds of different things on that channel. All right, so we had this discussion a while back about mindfulness. I'm going to use the Onion special. Can you comprehensively and extensively discuss what do I want to say? Not discuss, describe, explain everything we covered in this conversation so far. How long back does this go? Oh, this doesn't go back that far. Okay. Here's a comprehensive and extensive synthesis of our discussion. The document bridges the Buddhist theory of non-conceptual meditation with modern neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and philosophy of mind. Okay, this is the one that Dom started, right? And then I continued it. All right, the central thesis we have explored is that the Buddhist progression from conceptual engagement, visualization, mantras to non-conceptual awareness is not merely a metaphysical idea, but a distinct, measurable, and mechanically explicable Shift in neural processing. This shift involves moving from a narrative mode, simulating reality, to a director mode, processing raw sensory data. The neural hardware. What happens in the brain when concepts drop away? Deactivation of the default mode network. The DMN is the neurological seat of the story of me. It is active when we mind wander, ruminate, or think about the past and future. The shift in advanced meditation, the DMN is significantly inhibited. This correlates with the subjective experience of dropping the self. The consequence, without the DMN, the brain stops knitting disparate moments into a linear narrative. Instead, experience becomes a series of disjointed high-fidelity nows. High-amplitude gamma synchrony. This was the crux of our binding discussion. Gamma waves are usually associated with binding features into an object. So this is the, global workspace. A bunch of different things are contributing to our conscious experience. The paradox, why doesn't high gamma just create stronger concepts? The solution. In non-conceptual states, gamma synchrony expands to include the entire perceptual field while simultaneously decoupling from the semantic linguistic networks in the temporal lobes. The carrier wave metaphor. The brain broadcasts a massive carrier wave of attention, high energy / arousal, but suppresses the signal modulation, the specific conceptual message. You are fully online, but broadcasting silence. Okay. Part 2, the cognitive software. How does the operating system of the mind change? Okay, so we talked about global workspace theory and empty ignition. Standard global workspace theory suggests consciousness is a broadcast of specific information. Empty ignition. Meditation creates a state of empty ignition. The global workspace is fully ignited. High availability of resources, high interconnectivity. I don't think this is the right way of talking about ignition in this framework, but it is not collapsing into a specific attractor state. I think it still would. But we can continue. But it wouldn't be one that's specifically leveraging the linguistic parts of the brain. Subjective result. This explains the description of pure awareness or awareness of awareness. The system is aware of its own capacity to be aware rather than being aware of a specific thing. Predictive processing and the inversion of perception. This is the most sophisticated model for understanding realness. Normal state. The brain acts as a prediction machine. It projects top-down concepts to explain away sensory noise. We see our predictions, not the world. Meditative state. The meditator stops trusting the top-down prediction and instead maximizes the precision weighting of the bottom-up sensory error. Instead of solving the sensory data with a label, the brain surfs the raw texture of the sound. Paradox resolution. We noted that a perfect prediction usually leads to unconsciousness. Therefore, the heightened consciousness in meditation comes from sustaining the error signal rather than resolving it. Did you explore what happens in the brain during cessation? Cessation. This is the I need to remember these things. Where all conscious feeling and perception temporarily cease. Okay. Can we extend this to the experience of cessation? All right, part 3, the philosophical nuances, defining concepts, reality, truth. The scope of concepts, embodied cognition. We established that a concept is not just a word, it's a holistic simulation involving linguistic labeling, motor affordances, and affective prediction. In deep states, the brain achieves de-reification. It inhibits the motor planning and linguistic tagging, stripping the object of its usefulness and name, leaving only its raw visual sensory presence. Note, we distinguish that structural priors, like gravity, 3D space, light/dark, likely remain active, meaning the state is not truly blank, but stripped of higher order constructs. Phenomenology versus ontological realness. Users report these states as more real than real. We dissected this claim. Phenomenological realism. The experience is more real in terms of signal fidelity. You're processing uncompressed, unfiltered sensory data. It is the raw file versus the JPEG. Ontological realism, debatable. This sensation of clarity does not necessarily prove metaphysical truths. For example, the universe is one. It proves that when you remove the brain's filters, the remaining signal is intense and unified. The experience is a fact about the lens, the brain, not necessarily the scenery, the universe. All right, part 4, the timeline of memory, the epistemic trap. How do we talk about the ineffable? Ineffable, to greater extreme. Okay, to be described in words. Right, we talked about how this happens in the brain, that at time t, we've got the high gamma, we got the DMN off, we got the high precision. The subjective experience would be pure, vivid, non-labeled presence, empty. So it's not even like subjective in a sense yet. Time t plus 1, DMN reactivates, scans the memory trace. Wow, there was no me there. It was so clear. And then time plus 2, consolidation. Linguistic center tags the memory. I experience the void, God / source. The corruption. By time t plus 2, the memory of the non-conceptual event has been saved with a conceptual tag. This makes it difficult for scientists and meditators to distinguish between the raw experience and the cultural explanation they attach to it seconds later. All right. Does Buddhist theory have scientific support? Yes, but with precision. Support for non-conceptual, verified by the deactivation of DMN and semantic networks. Support for clarity / realness, verified by the shift in predictive processing, high precision, low prediction. And then support for global non-dual, verified by long-range gamma synchrony, binding the field without segmenting it. The magic of the experience is not magic. It is the feeling of the brain's user interface, the simulation, being turned off, allowing the user to experience the raw machine code. I don't know if I like that analogy ever, but okay. We got through. We're doing cessation, fruition, nirvana, highest state of the Theravada Buddhism. Skanda Nirodha. All due respect, but that sounds like a setup for a teased nuts joke. Means aggregates ceasing. Aggregates are how Buddhist segment parts of experience. Okay. All right, this is the ultimate extension of the theory. If non-conceptual meditation is stripping the software, then cessation, Nirodha or Nirodha's Samapati, is pulling the plug on the hardware. It is distinct from the non-conceptual awareness we just discussed. In non-conceptual states, you are hyper-aware of the sensory field. In cessation, you are aware of nothing. It is a discontinuous gap in existence, a blink where the universe turns off and then turns back on. Here is the scientific and theoretical breakdown of cessation, extending the frameworks of global neuronal workspace, predictive processing, and neuroscience. The phenomenological distinction. First, we must be precise about what this event is. Non-conceptual state, I am seeing the raw code of reality without the user interface, the labels. And this would be one where it's not self-conscious at all. Like, there's no thought about self in that type of experience, because any leveraging of the idea of self would be to leverage concepts. All right, cessation. The screen went black. The computer shut down. Then it rebooted. There is no experience of the cessation itself. There is only the knowledge of a gap and the after effects. Wow. Okay. So yeah, how does this happen? Because this would be kind of terrifying. I would just think I fell asleep or something. The neural mechanism, the global unbinding. If non-conceptual awareness is high amplitude gamma, cessation appears to be the collapse of gamma, the alpha wave crash. The 2023 and 2024 research by Luukkonen et al., Laukkanen et al., specifically studied this. They found that immediately prior to a cessation event, there is massive synchronization of broadband activity followed by a precipitous drop in alpha power. Why alpha matters. Alpha waves often act as a pulsing mechanism that samples sensory information. When alpha crashes, the sampling mechanism fails. So thalamocortical gating. So the thalamus and the cortex. The thalamus was the relay as part of the global neuronal workspace theory. So if something happens with the thalamus, then consciousness gets really odd. All right, the leading hypothesis is that the meditator voluntarily triggers a thalamic gate closure. The thalamus is the switchboard connecting the senses to the cortex. If this gate closes while the brainstem arousal remains active, you get a unique state: biological wakefulness plus cortical darkness. Okay. They say it's pure peace, nirvana. One definition of how Theravadins use nirvana anyway. Okay. Nice. So then I mean, in that sense, then they would still have memory of it. Which I think this might be talking about a different type of state where you don't have memory of it, but I could be wrong. I think we'll get to memory. All right, global workspace theory, the failure of ignition. In the global neuronal workspace theory, normal consciousness, information enters the workspace and ignites, becoming globally available. Non-conceptual, the workspace is empty ignited, broadcasting raw capacity. Cessation, the broadcast itself stops. The workspace fails to ignite entirely. The disparate regions of the brain may still be humming along quietly in the background, unconsciously, but the long-distance integration ceases. Subjectively, time stops because time is a construction of the workspace binding sequential moments together. All right. This makes sense so far. Predictive processing, the model collapse. This is arguably the most fascinating interpretation. Recall that in the non-conceptual state, we strip away semantic priors, the names, labels, but kept structural priors. So space, time, gravity, subject, object, orientation. The deepest priors. The brain has extremely deep, archaic predictions that define the stage upon which reality plays out. The two deepest priors are space exists and time is passing. The collapse. In the approach to cessation, the meditator rigorously disregards all sensory input via extreme concentration or letting go. The brain eventually decides that the sensory signal is so low, where the precision weighting is so warped, that the model of space-time is no longer useful. Crazy. The result, the brain updates its model to 0. It stops predicting space and time. The experience, since you cannot have an experience outside of space and time, experience itself vanishes. The simulation crashes because the parameters defining the simulation have been deleted. I don't know if I like the way that they're talking about this. Like, you could probably have some sort of experience without space and time. It just would be it would be an otherworldly experience. I don't know. It's not. It wouldn't. I think it would be inappropriate to say it's an out of body experience, because that almost implies space. It would be, it would just be an experience of pure novelty. I don't know. I can only speculate. I haven't experienced it, but I wouldn't expect AI to 100% understand it. Oh my gosh, 100% understand it either. True. It is misrepresenting non-conceptual meditation. I feel subject-object collapse, altered perception of time and space are all commonly talked about. Okay. Yeah, I think that what we're doing here is just trying to speculate how this would correlate with what the brain's doing. All right, the reboot effect, the insight generator. Scientific support for cessation is most robust when looking at what happens immediately afterward. This is where the Buddhist theory of insight, vipassana, gains mechanical support. When the brain comes back online... Oh, we got the T+1 again. When the brain comes back online, time T+1, it has to reboot the simulation from scratch. The DMN and predictive models were completely flushed. When they restart, they lack the inertia of previous moments. So watching the loading screen. For a few seconds, the meditator witnesses the reconstruction of reality. First, they might feel raw contact, simple sensation. Then space reemerges. Then time starts ticking. Then finally, the self-concept is loaded. The scientific insight. This provides the meditator with first-person evidence of constructivism. They saw the self being constructed. They saw time being rendered. This confirms the predictive processing claim reality is a construction. To the meditator, this feels like realizing emptiness, that the self and world are not solid, pre-existing things, but processes that can be turned off and on. Okay, does science support cessation? Science supports the mechanism of cessation. Thalamocortical disruption, alpha drop, and the metabolic feasibility of a waking coma. It also strongly supports the after effect, the cognitive reset. The magic of cessation is simply that it allows the brain to catch itself in the act of booting up the operating system we usually take for granted. Okay, what might lead meditators, expert meditators, to understand these experiences as nirvana, as pure peace and nirvana? Is this all a manifestation of T+1? Or are they not quite in a full cessation state, regardless of what they might think, leading them to experience a quite positive, low, alpha, I don't know, experience. Actually, I don't know if I want to keep the low alpha. Maybe I'll do that. I'll let it go in either direction. Okay, they say afterwards in the afterglow you can gain insight from seeing the system reboot. Okay, that's cool. You see the links of dependent origination, they say. Oh, geez. That would be pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, I could see how that could be such a profound experience, as if someone was pulling the, you know, the curtains back, or pulling the, I don't know, the carpet out under you. What are the phrases? This is a penetrating question that probes the boundary between no experience and good experience. If cessation is truly a system shutdown, it shouldn't feel like peace. It shouldn't feel like anything. A gap in a tape recording isn't peaceful, it's just a gap. So why do expert meditators universally code this event as ultimate peace or nirvana? The answer likely involves a combination of your T+1 hypothesis, the afterglow, and the predictive processing definition of pleasure. The T+1 hypothesis, the cooling fan effect. You are likely correct that for a true cessation, the feeling of peace is a retrospective construction generated at time T+1. Consider the cooling fan analogy. Scenario, you are in a room with a loud humming computer fan. You've been there so long you've tuned it out. Habituation. Suddenly the power cuts, the fan stops. You don't hear nothing. You hear a loud silence. You feel a sudden rushing wave of relief. Applied to the brain, the fan is the DMN in the self model. Maintaining a simulation of me versus the world requires a massive metabolic load. It is a constant low-grade stressor. Dukkha. The event, time t, the plug is pulled, the metabolic load drops to near zero, there is no experience here. The reboot, time +1, the system wakes up, the self has not yet loaded, the fan is still off. The feeling, the brain compares their current state, zero load, to the memory of the baseline state, high load. It computes this delta as supreme relief. The linguistic center grabs the strongest word it has for it, total absence of friction/stress equals nirvana. In this view, peace is not a presence of something good, it is the shock of realizing how heavy the self was by momentarily dropping it. Alright, the predictive processing view, minimizing error equals bliss. If the meditator is not in full cessation but hovering near it, what you call a positive synchronized experience, neuroscience offers a compelling reason why this feels like peace. In the free energy principle, the brain's imperative is to minimize prediction error, both now and in the future. Anxiety suffering, high prediction error involved with anxiety and suffering. The world is chaotic. My model isn't working. I need to work hard to fix it. Peace and pleasure, the rate at which prediction error is decreasing. The asymptote. Jesus, I haven't said asymptote in like months, I think. The asymptote of cessation. As a meditator approaches cessation, they are systematically resolving or dropping every error signal. They are entering a state of perfect prediction, or rather zero error, because there are no predictions left to violate. Mathematically, the brain interprets zero error as maximum value / reward. Normally, we get a dopamine hit when we solve a puzzle, reduce error. In deep meditation, you are solving the puzzle of existence by dissolving the pieces. The brain rewards this massive reduction in entropy with a massive signal of positive valence. Okay, I gotta push on this now, given what we've talked about recently. And imagine in these states of peace, there wouldn't be much dopamine action, given that the mind is specifically not mobilizing itself. Would then all the positive feelings come from opioids and endocannabinoids? Or am I misunderstanding how dopamine might operate even when it's not drawing attention, action, etc. towards anything? Or perhaps it is. Okay. It is trippy that you have to think this is one of the best human experiences, but it's just nothing, right? Oh, here we go. All right, we got a revealing Nirodha Samapati. All right, we're gonna have to do the summarized video. All right, the near miss trap, the jhanas. Your intuition that they might not quite be in a full cessation state is biologically supported by the concept of jhanas, states of absorption. The meditator has suppressed the DMN but retained the reward circuits. The feeling they're in a high gamma, high coherent state where the self is gone but the pleasure of existence remains active. The confusion is very common for meditators to mistake this very quiet, very happy state for nirvana. In strict Buddhist theory, this is not nirvana. This is just a golden cage. True nirvana requires the cessation of the observer of the peace. If you can say, I feel peace, you aren't in cessation. You are in a high valence trance. Okay, biological peace versus ontological nirvana. Finally, we must distinguish the biological marker from the religious claim. The biological peace, a result of parasympathetic dominance, reduced cortisol, and the suspension of the threat detection network. This is a temporally physiological state. Now, nirvana, the insight, the wisdom aspect of nirvana comes from the T+1 realization we discussed earlier. Oh, the self is a construct that can be turned off. The peace is the feeling of the shutdown. Nirvana is the knowledge that you don't have to take the simulation seriously anymore. Okay. So let's give it that. Now let's follow up on this. Might be some good timestamps in there. Oh, like in all this stuff. All right, this video discusses a groundbreaking paper titled Cessations of Consciousness and Meditation, Advancing a Scientific Understanding of Nirodha Samapati. The paper focuses on Delson Armstrong's ability to enter Nirodha Samapati, a rare state of extended cessation of consciousness. Key participants and their roles. Delson Armstrong, the subject of the study, described as a guinea pig. He demonstrates the ability to consciously enter and exit the Nirodha Samapati state, even timing his reemergence. He has remained in this state for up to 6 days. What? He's remained in this state for up to 6 days. Are we seeing him while in this? Okay. No one seems to be meditating right now.
His mind is made up of...
Dr. Laukkanen, the lead researcher, okay, who we saw, he was initially skeptical but became curious after seeing preliminary neural data from Delson using a Muse headband. He describes the experimental design and the rigorous data analysis process. Shinzen Young, a meditation teacher and neuroscience research consultant, he analyzes Delson's abilities and discusses the mathematical models used in the study. And then Chelsea Fasano, a Columbia University neuroscience graduate, she participates in the discussion and asks questions about the subjective experience of exiting Nirodha Samapati. All right, so the exit is the object of her questions. All right. Study background and findings. The research began in late 2019 when Delson was sent a Muse headband to record his meditation sessions. Dr. Laukkanen and his team designed an experiment to test Delson in a lab setting using EEG and other physiological measures. Preliminary data showed a decrease in alpha synchronization or functional connectivity in the brain during cessation states, consistent with findings from a Harvard lab. This suggests a breakdown in message passing between different brain regions. The specific measure used is called the phase lag index. Okay. Delson describes entering the state by systematically decoupling from the 5 aggregates and re-emerging with profound clarity and hyper-awareness. The panel discusses potential links between Nirodha Samapati and human hibernation and the 3 gates of liberation from Buddhist doctrines. All right, broader implicate. Oh, this jumped through real quickly. What was this? This is Delson's account. Timing the exit. How many others can do this? The existence of such a natural shutdown and reboot mechanism in humans is considered a significant biological discovery. The process is not just a physiological trick, but involves insight and purification. The study opens avenues for understanding how the mind constructs itself and the potential for creating enlightened AI arhats. The discussion also touches upon the use of neurofeedback devices for meditation teaching. Okay. Oh, yeah, timestamps are always in the description. Yep, thank you. Did I just do something wrong? Yeah, I didn't. I think I hit the wrong thing. What did I do? Oh, I hit this. It's a little troll. Consequences. Networks in the multiverse. Okay, predictive processing all the way down.
So
Can I
somehow, yeah, go on.
make some just some
Yes.
caveats to what you said about predictive processing, if I can. Just to say that within the predictive processing framework, perception, sensation, all of these things that we take to be the kind of present moment are themselves the output of a predictive process. So there is no, within predictive processing, there is no such thing as really the raw perception, because there's no way to directly access any kind of raw information outside of the body. So as soon as something is interacting with the body, let's say like light hitting the retina, or you know, pressure on the body, or whatever the sort of gateway is, there's immediately a process of interpretation. In a way, the body interacting with that stimulus already there's a level of interpretation there, and then there's multiple levels of interpretation by the time that thing becomes conscious.
The key thing to point out, though, when we say interpretation, it's a little ambiguous, because it makes you think of the, you know, when we interpret things, which requires that you know, top level of the brain, linguistic, conceptual understanding. But interpretation is really just a description of let's just say logic happening in neurons in regions of the brain where priors, whatever they are, just signals are coming in and affecting what bottom up signals are it wouldn't I shouldn't say that as if it's like a filter. It's like a clash. You could just think of the top down priors and the bottom up signals are clashing in such a way where some other signal comes out of it, and that's the prediction there. That, you know, we got the priors, and then we got the error and whatever comes from that. But yeah, those initial, you know, bodily signals, there's interpretation there, but it's not the same type of interpretation that requires our like conceptual understanding. So you know, there can still be that type of experience without the DMN and the prefrontal cortex in general.
So all sensory experience and experience of self, time, space is part of this predictive process. And then with regard to like whether you can actually experience free energy in any kind of direct sense, that I'm not quite sure is possible, because free energy is more of a mathematical principle. That's sort of what the system is trying to reduce in order to reach its sort of conclusions about what is actually happening. That's sort of the sort of error over time. So that's sort of a mathematical principle. But you know, it is possible that there's this sort of, we have sort of phenomenology about the state of our system.
Wait, what is going on? Why are they geeking out here? I feel like there's something happening.
When uncertainty is boosted up, like let's say there's a lot of free energy that is felt in the system, potentially through affective states and stress and anxiety and these kind
I think he means, or I think he was saying affective states, but I could be wrong. And the stress and anxiety.
of things. So just
yeah. No, Ruben, now we're getting down to the shit. Okay.
What? What is going on here? Oh my gosh. Is that what we've been doing on this channel this whole time? We've just been getting down to the shit? Oh.
Well said.
And yes, well said. This is where the pedal meets the metal. I'm not going to go into it because then it's going to be a whole other conversation. But there are classical Buddhist analogs for what you just said, Ruben. And we can go into that.
Yeah.
It's already been covered in the Buddhist tradition, I believe, what you're bringing up. But that's going to get us into something rather technical.
Yeah, well, I do think that's also really interesting territory, and I mean, this happened very much in our writing, sort of our theoretical account of meditation, that we found resonances in Buddhism that were striking, really.
Yes, so this isn't going to be the first, the last time we're getting together to do this. If Jay and I have any say in it, we're going to have more meetings, because this is just bringing up so many potentials. But I do just want to say, without going into the details, let's remember everything Ruben just said, because there's some really interesting stuff in the Buddhist tradition that addresses this. But the question I have, and I just got to ask, Delson, you said that your family tradition was Catholic. What you're experiencing is analogous, of course, from a very different culture and a different worldview, but it is analogous to what Santa Teresa de Avila, Saint Teresa of Avila, would have called arrobamiento in Spanish, which was her 6 out of 7 stages to God. She'd have...
Okay. I could think of one, the first verse of the middle length discourse. Okay, you're saying one of the things that this guy was talking about, that connects to predictive processing. All right, let's maybe jump in somewhere else. What else might be side of the story? Rigorous training, Delson's account, timing, remaining in that, how many others can do it, how to enter. All right, first of all, we've got these are out of order.
What I
So this
there's
is
something else
Laukkanen.
that I think is beautiful about this.
I guess he's got the nicest clothes, or like most formal, so we can just assume he's doctor. All right, on the aggregates and meditative intention, possible link to hibernation. And then we got predictive processing. Okay. It's turtles all the way down. All right, the ego is survival mechanism. We can't go into networks in the multiverse. Neurofeedback devices for meditation teaching.
I mean, that sounds really, really cool because, to that point, I've been having discussions with people about this. Like, what if we could be able to, because this basically makes the job of a meditation teacher so much easier in essence. And I think it can be complementary, right? You have this AI system, and then you have the human aspect of a meditation teacher, whether they are enlightened or not, or whatever it might be. But the idea, would be, what if we could be able to find the neural correlates to what happens when you are in certain states of mind, whether you are in the first jhana or the third jhana or the fourth jhana.
Exactly.
And then a teacher can actually see that without having to ask questions. And then they might ask certain questions to kind of figure it out. But if you have that, it just makes the whole process that much more efficient, that much more accessible for a larger group of people.
You got it. And then add to that.
All right. Okay. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, I kind of want to I want to go into the science of this stuff, so I'm a little bummed they didn't continue with that, but yeah. Okay, and I'm wondering about specifically the mechanism of pleasure here, the peaceful state. What's happening? All right. You are intuitively applying the wanting versus liking framework proposed by neuroscientists Kent Berridge and Morton Kringelbach, which is the perfect lens for this. You are largely correct. Dopamine is the molecule of more, while opioids are the molecules of here. However, dopamine does play a surprising specialized role in meditation, even when you are physically still. Here's the breakdown of the peace cocktail and why dopamine behaves differently than you might expect. So I wonder if like dopamine is just like coupled with predictive processing in such a way where when there is I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna just read. All right, the general rule: the shift from wanting to liking. Your hypothesis holds up for the transition into deep peace. Dopamine, the chaser. This drives seeking, craving, and mobilization. It creates the itch that says, go check your phone or fix this problem. In deep peace, this phasic dopamine, the spikes must quiet down. Otherwise, you would feel restless, not peaceful. All right, so the phasic dopamine, the spikes must quiet down. Opioids, endocannabinoids, the savoring. These are the hedonics hotspots. They generate the feeling of warmth, bliss, and comfort. Endogenous opioids, endorphins, enkephalins. Have I heard this word? Enkephalins? Responsible for the deep, heavy feeling of joy and pain relief. And then endocannabinoids, like anandamine. Literally named after the Sanskrit word for bliss, ananda. They dampen excitatory neurotransmitters, quieting the noise, and produce a timeless floating sensation. Okay. So yes, the subjective feeling of peace as opposed to excitement is dominantly opioid cannabinoid driven. It is the neurochemistry of satiety. All right, the dopamine surprise, though. Salience without action. You asked, am I misunderstanding how dopamine might operate even when it's not drawing attention / action towards anything? This is the nuance. Dopamine isn't just about moving your legs. It is about locking onto a single. So this is what I'm thinking. It's about mobilizing your mind in such a way. Like when I think about mobilizing the mind, I think about prediction error. So that's why I was trying to connect it. But let's see. Tonic versus phasic dopamine. The spikes, go get the reward mobilization. This drops on meditation. But tonic, background level. This current state is valuable. Protect it. Oh, okay. That's the idea here. This is like the background level would be in this type of thing. So we can expect like some tonic amount of dopamine that's kind of trying to protect the state that you're in. All right, the gatekeeper role in high concentration states. Jhana studies have actually observed increases in dopamine in the ventral striatum. Why? Because the brain has identified the silence or the breath as the highest value object. Dopamine floods the system not to make you move, but to suppress noise. It clamps down on the gates, preventing distraction from entering the workspace. Yeah, because dopamine can also increase the activation of inhibition. Like it can literally, a lot of the parts of the brain involve literally activating a region that is specifically geared to inhibit some other region. That's how predictive processing relates to MN1 by the Buddha. How does predictive... Actually, I'm going to do this in a different chat just because we've been pretty specific, or pretty... we've been on the same grind on that one chat. How does predictive processing relate to MN1 by the Buddha? Okay. So dopamine floods the system not to make you move, but to suppress noise. The experience. This doesn't feel like seeking. It feels like invincibility or intense energy. Piti? In Buddhism, it is the feeling of being locked in. So dopamine is still there, but it has switched from search mode to guard mode. The peace cocktail timeline. To visualize how chemicals shift as one deepens into the state we discussed. So stage of experience. We got focused attention, effort, locking on, norepinephrine and dopamine, high arousal, alertness. Then we got rapture, PT. Thrill, vibration, energy, peak dopamine. The brain says this signal is amazing. Deep peace, sukha. Happiness, contentment, stillness. Opioids take over. Dopamine drops. The seeking ends. The having begins. And then equanimity. Neutrality, vastness, and safety. Serotonin, the regulator. It dampens the highs and lows, creating a flat, spacious stability. All right, why peace feels better than thrills. You are right that the lack of mobilization is key. Dopaminergic joy always contains a shadow of anxiety, the fear that the reward will stop or the need to get more. Opioid serotonergic joy is self-contained because it is not linked to a prediction error. It feels complete. Okay, the Buddhist insight. This aligns perfectly with the Buddhist claim that sukha, peace, is superior to piti, rapture. Rapture is shaking the mind, dopamine agitation. Peace is the mind resting in the chemical bath of satiety. All right, the peace is the absence of the dopaminergic itch combined with the presence of the opioid blanket. If dopamine is present in peace, it is only there as a quiet sentry, keeping the door locked so that the opioids can do their work undisturbed. Jhanas are one of those coarse to subtle things that Beth talks about. Oh, okay, they get more subtle. Interesting. All right, the Mullapariyaya Sutta is often called the root of all things and is famously difficult because it describes the cognitive architecture of delusion. Predictive processing is a leading theory in cognitive neuroscience, suggesting the brain is a prediction machine rather than a passive camera. When viewed together, MN1 reads like an ancient phenomenological account of what happens when the brain's predictive models, the priors, are infected by a specific rigid self-illusion. The following is an analysis of how the cognitive science and predictive processing relates to the Buddha's diagnosis in MN1. The core parallel: perception is a construction. Both frameworks agree that what we experience is not objective reality, but a constructed simulation. Predictive processing: the brain does not passively receive the world, it actively projects top-down predictions to explain sensory input. We don't see the world as it is, we see our model of the world. And then MN1, the Buddha distinguishes between the untaught ordinary person and the arahant, or the arahant, enlightened one. The ordinary person does not just perceive earth as earth, they actively overlay a layer of conceiving onto the raw sensory data. The bridge, the Buddhist term manyati is to conceive, imagine, construe, functions almost exactly like the rigid top-down prior. It is an interpretive overlay that the mind adds to the raw data of the senses. Right? I mean, it could just be how the LLM is describing this, but what's implied here is that the person, the enlightened one, can see the earth as it is, like the earth in itself, which is what I think is not what predictive processing tells us. Predictive processing tells us that there is no world in itself in some ontological category. That the only thing that makes us feel like it is our affective predictive mechanisms. All right, the algorithm of delusion, conceiving versus priors. MN1 outlines a specific algorithm that the ordinary mind runs on every object. This mirrors the predictive processing concept of a generative model. All right, the sequence, the self prior. When an ordinary person perceives an object, they go through a four-step cognitive distortion. Perceives earth as earth, and then conceives of earth, then conceives in earth from earth, so putting the self inside the object, and then conceives ownership of it. Wow. So I think we can't say this type of thing as clearly when we talk about the brain. Like it's I don't think it's certainly not as sequential as this. Maybe you could describe this type of sequence in our development of consciousness over time, but it wouldn't be in our experience. All right, the predictive processing translation. In predictive processing term, the ordinary brain has a deep prior or hyper prior that assumes I exist and I am the center of this experience. The brain receives raw data. To minimize uncertainty, the brain recruits its most familiar model. It predicts that this raw data must relate to me. The perception is hijacked. Right. The tricky thing is, like, it's not as clear cut as this, and it might not be in this order in some sense. And it's sequential. It's like a parallel process. You don't see a tree? Okay. I gotta go. Awesome. Yeah, no, enjoy. Have a good one. I probably won't be still on, but no worries. We'll be back tomorrow. Okay. Why does the ordinary person do this? The Buddha's answer: because he has not comprehended it. In predictive processing, ignorance can be mapped to high precision on a false prior. False prior, I don't think, is like a way of talking about priors in predictive processing. Like, there's no such thing as like a true or false prior unless you start incorporating some extra conceptual context that tells you, according to our, science about the physical world, we say that this thing is true. It requires some other ontological context. The mind overfits the data. Even if the raw data impermanence shows no self, the brain's predictive model forces a self interpretation onto the experience anyway. All right, the solution. The arahant versus surprise. So it describes the arahant cognition differently. He perceives earth as earth, but he does not conceive of earth. He does not conceive mind. He does not delight in earth. This describes a cognitive system that has updated its model to match reality. Yeah, like this you can't say. This is not a predictive processing approach. De-weighting the self prior has successfully lowered the precision. Okay. Yeah, like, I don't think these things are possible here. But pretty neat. That would be one way to draw the parallel. But yeah, hopefully this guy is you know, going to be disagreeable enough to push back if you know, if someone were to try to make that type of claim. Because the concept is a little bit deeper, but you know, he's might not be in the situation to do that. Okay. Oh, I might call it here. Because I kind of want to relax and maybe finish cleaning up my my kitchen. All right. On that note, what do we do here? This is what we just did. Okay. And then I'm gonna listen to that after the stream. And then we got these, and then I might work on these later. What is this? Got the Zoom meeting up? What's the Zoom meeting? Oh. That was a video where they were talking about meditation, and we got to hear a doctor try to bring up predictive processing, and everyone freaked out. It's actually kind of wild. They started laughing. Everyone started geeking, and then he got shut down. Wait. Hold up. Was that a music video? This is Dom's new song. Go check it out. I don't know if it's a music video. I think this is probably one of Dom's oh, is it moving actually? Is it animated? I was gonna say I thought it would be one of his posters. But yeah, no, check it out. Check it out. All right, and then I will. Hopefully, I can work on something tomorrow. Hopefully, I could find the time. Find the time to do something. All right. Have a good one. See you later. Thanks for chilling.